The sleek Aston Martin sputtered to a stop along the misty coastal road, belching steam from under its hood. Thaddeus Mercer, whose technological innovations had revolutionized quantum computing and made him billions, stared at the dashboard. In disbelief, the irony wasn't lost on him. A man who had created devices that could process calculations in microseconds was now defeated by basic automotive mechanics. As raindrops began to pelt the windshield, he ran his fingers across the rough stubble of his beard. Still unfamiliar after years of clean-shaven precision, the facial reconstruction surgery after the accident had changed more than just his appearance. It had given him an unexpected anonymity that he was now using to his advantage. Through the gathering storm, he spotted a weathered mailbox with hand-painted letters, the Brambles, no solicitors. Something about the artistic lettering made his heart quicken. He grabbed his phone, but predictably there was no signal in this remote stretch of Port Avalon. As he stepped out into the rain, his expensive loafers immediately sinking into mud, he heard laughter carried on the wind. Two girls, perhaps 12 years old, raced down the gravel driveway, identical in their yellow raincoats, but mirror opposites in their movements. One bold and charging ahead, the other more measured, but with observant eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Your car's smoking worse than Old Man Finnegan's pipe," the first girl called out, skidding to a stop. "Are you lost?" Before we dive deeper into this unexpected encounter that's about to change everything, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The coastal town of Port Avalon had always been a haven for artists seeking inspiration from its dramatic cliffs and isolated beaches. It was the last place anyone would expect to find Thaddeus Mercer, the reclusive genius. Behind Quantum Helix, the company whose technological breakthroughs had transformed everything from medical imaging to financial systems. Yet here he was, stranded in a rainstorm, being assessed by twin girls with identical faces but distinctly different expressions. "I'm not lost exactly," Thad replied, water streaming down his face despite his futile attempt to shield himself. "With a leather briefcase, just temporarily immobilized. He talks like a dictionary," the bolder girl stage whispered to her sister, who studied him with calculating eyes. "I'm Octavia," the outspoken one announced. "This is Ophelia. She's older by 8 minutes, but I'm taller by half an inch." "Pleased to meet you both," Thad said, extending his hand formally before realizing how ridiculous the gesture seemed in the pouring rain. He caught himself. Thomas Gray." The quieter twin, Ophelia, tilted her head slightly. "Your car needs help. We know someone who can fix it." "Our mom's friend has a tow truck," Octavia added. "We can call her for you." "That would be incredibly helpful," Thad said, relief washing over him. The last thing he needed was media attention from being recognized. The facial reconstruction after the explosion at his laboratory had changed his appearance enough that casual acquaintances wouldn't know him. But anyone who knew him well might see through the altered cheekbones and reconstructed jaw. "Is there somewhere I can wait out of the rain?" The girls exchanged a quick glance, some unspoken communication passing between them. "You can come to our house," Octavia decided. "Mom's painting in her studio, but she won't mind. She always says art is about observing the unexpected." "That's very generous," Thad said, grabbing his briefcase from the passenger seat and locking the car. As they headed up the winding gravel path, he asked, "Have you two lived here long?" "All our lives," Ophelia answered, her voice softer than her sister's, but with surprising clarity. "Mom moved here before we were born. She says cities crush creativity. Except when she sells her paintings," Octavia added. "Then we go to Meridian City and stay in fancy hotels while she meets with gallery people." Thad nearly stumbled on the path. Meridian City. where his company headquarters dominated the skyline with its distinctive helix-shaped tower. The coincidence made him uneasy, but he reminded himself that Meridian was the cultural hub for the entire region. Many artists sold their work there. The path opened to reveal a rambling structure that seemed to have grown organically from the landscape. Parts appeared to be an original fisherman's cottage, with newer sections added in wood, glass, and stone that somehow harmonized rather than clashed. Gardens in various stages of wildness surrounded it, and a separate building with massive windows stood apart, clearly an artist's studio. "Come on," Octavia urged, racing ahead to the covered porch, while Ophelia maintained a more dignified pace beside Thad. "Your home is remarkable," he commented, taking in the unexpected beauty of the place. "Mom designed it," Ophelia said with quiet pride. Different architects said it wouldn't work, but she found one who understood her vision. Inside, the house was a revelation, open and filled with light despite the gray day outside. Art covered the walls, not just paintings but weavings, photographs and sculptures. Musical instruments occupied one corner and books seemed to grow from every surface. It was chaotic, yet somehow perfectly balanced, the opposite of Thad's minimalist penthouse with its monochromatic palette and stark furnishings. "I'll call Linnea about your car," Octavia announced, heading for an ancient-looking landline phone. "Mom doesn't believe in cell service here, says it interrupts the creative flow." Thad nodded, still absorbing the surroundings. Something about the space felt hauntingly familiar, though he was certain he'd never been here before. A collection of small sculptures on a side table caught his attention. Abstract forms in bronze that seemed to capture movement in static metal. "Mom's early work," Ophelia explained, noticing his interest. "From before we were born." Thad picked up one of the pieces, a complex spiral that reminded him of DNA strands. He turned it over and saw the artist's mark, a stylized IV that sent an electric shock through his system. "Isolde Vega. It couldn't be." "Your mother," he said carefully, setting down the sculpture with hands that suddenly didn't feel steady. "What's her name?" "Isolde," Ophelia answered, watching his reaction with those observant eyes. "Isolde Vega." The universe had an unsettling sense of humor. After 8 years of no contact, his broken-down car had delivered him directly to the doorstep of the woman who had walked away from him, and their relationship when he had chosen his company over their future together. "Linnea says she'll come with the tow truck," Octavia announced, bounding back into the room. "But not until the storm passes, probably an hour or so." She peered out the window at the intensifying rain. "You're stuck with us for a while, Mr. Gray." "I should let your mother know I'm here," Thad said, suddenly feeling like an intruder. "I wouldn't want to startle her." "She doesn't like interruptions when she's working," Octavia explained. "But she'll be done soon. She always stops at 5 to make dinner." Ophelia had moved to the kitchen area and was putting a kettle on the stove. "Would you like tea? Mom says we should always offer visitors tea." "That would be lovely, thank you," Thad replied automatically, his mind still reeling from the revelation. These articulate, self-possessed girls were Isolde's daughters. Their age 12 aligned perfectly with the timing of their breakup. A terrible suspicion began forming in his mind, intensified when he looked more carefully at their features. Octavia's confident gestures and the way Ophelia tilted her head when considering something, he recognized these mannerisms because they were his own. The girls moved around the kitchen with practiced coordination, preparing tea and arranging cookies on a plate. They were mirror reflections of each other, Octavia right-handed, Ophelia left-handed, but both had the same amber eyes that Thad saw in his own mirror every morning. "What does your mom paint?" he asked, struggling to maintain casual conversation while his world tilted on its axis. Everything, Octavia said with a shrug. Landscapes, people, abstract stuff. Her new series is about quantum physics, which is weird because she usually hates science. Not hates, Ophelia corrected. She says science without art is empty, and art without science is blind. Einstein said something similar, Thad noted, accepting the steaming mug of tea Ophelia offered him. That's what Mom says too, Octavia replied. Are you a scientist, Mr. Gray? Before he could formulate an answer, the front door opened and Thad's heart seemed to stop in his chest. Isolde Vega stood in the doorway, her dark hair streaked with silver now and pulled back in a loose knot, paint smudges on her forearms and a questioning expression that transformed into shock when she saw him. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Her eyes darted between him and the twins, clearly trying to determine if he had made the connection. The girls, oblivious to the sudden tension, rushed to explain about the stranded motorist and the call to Linnea. Isolde's voice, when she finally spoke, was carefully composed. How fortunate you found our home, Mr. Gray, he supplied, playing along with her pretense. Thomas Gray. Your daughters have been incredibly hospitable. They're good judges of character, she said, with a meaningful look that told him the conversation was far from over. Girls, would you check if the laundry got wet on the line? I think some might have blown off in the wind. The twins exchanged glances, clearly recognizing the dismissal, but deciding not to challenge it. As they disappeared out the back door, Isolde crossed her arms and pinned Thad with an intense stare. What are you doing here, Thaddeus? Pure coincidence, he assured her, setting down his mug. My car actually did break down. I had no idea you lived here. You look different, she said, studying his face. But then I suppose that was the point of the surgery. You knew about that? He asked, surprised. The explosion at Quantum Helix was international news, she replied, as was the founder's miraculous survival and subsequent facial reconstruction. Though you've been remarkably camera-shy since then. The new face has its advantages, he admitted, fewer people asking for selfies or investment advice. A flash of the old Isolde, wry humor breaking through her reserve, surfaced briefly. I imagine that would get tiresome. Her expression hardened again. But you still haven't explained why you're in Port Avalon. This isn't exactly on the way to anywhere. Before he could answer, his attention was caught by movement as the twins raced back inside, breathless from the rain. There wasn't any laundry out there, Octavia reported, suspicious. The basket's still in the utility room. My mistake, Isolde said smoothly. Since you're both already wet, would you feed the chickens before dinner? Take the umbrella this time. Once they were gone again, Thad spoke quietly. They're mine, aren't they? Isolde didn't bother denying it. Biologically, yes. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice strained. You disappeared without a word. I had a right to know I had daughters. Did you? She challenged. You made your choice very clear, Thaddeus. Quantum Helix was your priority, your only priority. You said, and, I quote, nothing will divert me from seeing this through, so I didn't divert you. The words struck him like physical blows because they were true. He had been single-minded in his determination to bring his technology to market, working 20-hour days and dismissing anything or anyone that might slow his momentum. You could have at least given me the option, he said, anger seeping into his voice. Instead, you made that decision for me, for us all. I made the decision that protected my daughters from half-hearted fatherhood, she retorted. They deserved better than fragments of attention between board meetings. Before he could respond, the sound of an engine interrupted them. Through the front window, he saw an old but well-maintained tow truck pulling up beside his Aston Martin. That's Linnea, Isolde said, visibly relieved at the interruption. "She'll help with your car." "We're not finished with this conversation," Thad warned quietly. "Yes, we are," Isolde insisted. "Linnea will tow your car to her garage, fix whatever's wrong, and you can be on your way. The girls don't need to know who you really are." "You've kept the truth from them all this time?" he asked, incredulous. "I have told them their father was brilliant, but unavailable," she answered, which is entirely accurate. A tall woman with steel-grey hair pulled into a severe bun entered without knocking. She assessed the situation with a shrewd glance between Thad and Isolde. "So the stranded motorist is Thaddeus Mercer himself," she remarked. "The universe has a peculiar sense of timing." She extended a weathered hand. "Linnea Frost, I've towed. Vehicle's worth more than your fancy car, so don't worry about that. The radiator hose is split, simple fix, but I'll need to order the part. Won't arrive until tomorrow afternoon at the earliest." Thad absorbed this information with growing unease. "Is there a hotel nearby where I could stay tonight?" Linnea's laugh was like gravel. "In Port Avalon? In October? The summer tourists are long gone, and the only inn closed for renovations last month." "He can stay at the Seward Place," Isolde suggested. "Martha keeps it ready for visiting artists." "Martha's in Meridian City until Thursday," Linnea countered, took the keys with her. The impasse hung in the air until the twins burst back in from the chicken coop. "Linnea!" they cried in unison, rushing to hug the tall woman who softened visibly at their greeting. "Hello, Trouble," she said affectionately. "I hear you've been playing roadside rescue. Is Mr. Gray's car fixable?" Ophelia asked. "Nothing I can't handle, but the part won't be here until tomorrow," Linnea explained. "We're trying to figure out where he can stay tonight." "He can stay here," Octavia suggested immediately, "in the guest room." "That's not necessary," Thad began. "It's the obvious solution," Linnea interrupted, with a meaningful look at Isolde. "Unless there's some reason he shouldn't." Isolde's expression was unreadable as she considered her limited options. Finally, she nodded. "The guest room is available, just for tonight." "Perfect," Octavia declared. "I'll show you." "Where it is, Mr. Gray." She beckoned him toward a hallway, leaving the adults in an awkward triangle of unspoken tensions. As Thad followed her, he noticed Ophelia hanging back, watching him with those perceptive eyes that seemed to see far more than her years should. Allow the feeling of connection to these girls, his daughters, was overwhelming. They shared not just his genetic material, but mannerisms and intellectual curiosity he recognized intimately. The guest room was small but comfortable, with a handmade quilt on the bed and watercolor paintings of local landscapes adorning the walls. "Mom painted those," Octavia informed him proudly. "She says the light here changes every hour, so the same view is never really the same." "They're beautiful," Thad said sincerely. Isolde had always been talented, but her work had evolved significantly. He remembered the ambitious young artist he'd met at a gallery opening in Meridian City, how she'd challenged his assertion that technology would someday replicate artistic expression. Their debate had turned into dinner, then a relationship, that had consumed them both for nearly 2 years. "The bathrooms across the hall," Octavia continued her tour guide duties. "The hot water takes forever to warm up, and the pipes make weird noises. But Mom says that's part of the cottage's character." "Thank you for the warning," Thad replied, smiling despite the surreal situation. "And thank you for your hospitality. It's very generous of you and your family to take in a stranger." Octavia shrugged with the easy confidence of a child raised to trust her instincts. "You don't seem like a stranger. You seem familiar somehow." The observation sent a chill through him. "Dinner's usually at 6. Mom makes the best fish stew on rainy days." Left alone, Thad sat heavily on the bed, trying to process the day's revelations. He had daughters, twins, who had been growing up without him for 12 years. Isolde had kept this monumental secret while building a life in this artistic haven, far from the technological world he inhabited. The rational part of his brain understood her reasoning. He'd been obsessive about his work, believing that nothing, not even the woman he loved, should interfere with bringing his innovations to the world. In his most honest moments, he could admit that he might have resented fatherhood's demands during those critical early years of his company. But that was then. The explosion at his laboratory 3 years ago had changed more than his face. Months of recovery had given him time to reflect on what his single-minded ambition had cost him. When his board of directors, led by Zephyr Blackwood, had pushed to weaponize aspects of his technology against his original vision, Thad had begun questioning everything he'd sacrificed for his company's success. That soul-searching had led him to this coastal road, not by accident, as he'd let Isolde believe, but because he'd been secretly investigating a property for a new research center focused on humanitarian applications. A center that would prioritize balance and human connection alongside innovation. He'd been on his way back from meeting with local officials when his car had genuinely broken down. The universe did indeed have a peculiar sense of timing. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Ophelia, the quieter twin, holding a stack of towels. "Mum thought you might want to clean up before dinner," she said, offering the folded linens. "That's very thoughtful," he replied, accepting them. As she turned to go, he noticed something that made his heart stop, a necklace pendant visible at her collar, half hidden by her sweater. A distinctive platinum spiral set with tiny diamonds and a single emerald at its center. "That necklace," he said, his voice barely audible. "Where did you get it?" Ophelia's hand went to the pendant self-consciously. It was Mom's. She said it was a gift from someone important who understood how art and science could work together. She let me wear it for my science fair last month and then said I could keep it. She studied his reaction with those observant eyes. "Do you like it? It's unique," he managed to say, memories flooding back. He had designed that pendant himself, working with a renowned jeweler to create a physical representation of his quantum algorithms, the same patterns that had made his technology revolutionary. He had given it to Isolde on their last night, together, before she had walked away from him, and, unknowingly, he had walked away from his daughters. "It's the Fibonacci sequence," Ophelia continued, "with the golden ratio incorporated into the design. Mum says it represents how mathematics underlies all beauty in nature." "Your mother is right," Thad said, swallowing past the lump in his throat. "It's a perfect example of where art and science meet." Ophelia nodded, satisfied with his answer. "Dinner's in 20 minutes, she informed him, before heading back down the hallway with the same measured grace he recognized from his own mother. Alone again, Thad moved to the small window that overlooked the wild garden and the stormy sea beyond. The necklace was confirmation, if he needed any, of the connection between them all. What had begun as a chance breakdown had become a confrontation with the past and potentially a reimagining of his future. He had come to Port Avalon seeking a fresh start for his work. Instead, he had found Isolde and daughters he never knew existed. Daughters who shared not just his genes, but his curiosity, his way of seeing the world. The question now was whether this accidental reunion would lead to reconciliation or further heartbreak. As the scent of fish stew wafted through the cottage, and the rain continued its steady rhythm on the roof, Thaddeus Mercer prepared to join a family dinner. His family, though only he and Isolde knew it. He smoothed his still unfamiliar beard, studying his reflection in the small mirror above the dresser. The face looking back at him was not the one Isolde had known, but perhaps that was fitting. He was no longer the man who had let her walk away. Whether she would give him a chance to prove that remained to be seen. Outside the guest room, he could hear the twins' voices mixing with Isolde's as they set the table, the domestic harmony of a routine established over years. He had, Missed so much. First steps, first words, first days of school. Yet here was an unexpected opportunity, delivered by a broken radiator hose and the persistence of two extraordinary girls who had invited a stranger into their home. Taking a deep breath, Thad stepped out of the room and toward the uncertain future that awaited him in the warm kitchen of the house called the Brambles. Dinner at the Brambles was an exercise in controlled tension. Isolde had set the table with mismatched ceramic plates that Thad later learned she had made herself, each one uniquely glazed in oceanic blues and greens. The twins maintained a steady stream of conversation, seemingly oblivious to the currents of unspoken history swirling between the adults. "Mr. Gray works with computers," Octavia announced, passing a basket of crusty bread. "I told him about your quantum paintings, Mom." Isolde's hand paused mid-air. "Did you? And what did Mr. Gray think of that?" "I think it's fascinating," Thad replied carefully. "The intersection of art and science has always been fertile ground for innovation." "That's exactly what Mom says," Ophelia noted, her observant eyes moving between them. "She says traditional boundaries between disciplines are artificial constructs." Thad couldn't suppress a smile. "Your mother and I appear to share some philosophical common ground." Superficially, perhaps," Isolde countered, ladling more stew into Octavia's bowl. "Though I suspect our priorities differ significantly." The subtle jab didn't go unnoticed. "Priorities can evolve over time," Thad responded quietly. "Experience as a way of clarifying what matters." Linnea, who had joined them for dinner, watched this exchange with shrewd interest. "Speaking of priorities," she interjected, "what brings a man like you to our little coastal nowhere, Mr. Gray? Port Avalon isn't exactly a tech hub." It was a fair question, and one Thad had anticipated. "I'm exploring locations for a new research facility," he explained. "Something smaller and more focused than typical corporate campuses. Port Avalon has the right combination of natural beauty and proximity to universities in Meridian City." "You're going to build a tech company here?" Octavia asked, excitement bubbling in her voice. "With robots and virtual reality and stuff?" "Not exactly," Thad replied. "This would be more of a think tank focused on humanitarian applications, using technology to address climate change, medical access in remote areas, that sort of thing." "Noble ambitions," Linnea commented, her tone suggesting skepticism. "Do you have financial backing for this venture?" Isolde asked, her artist's practicality surfacing. "Vision without resources rarely materializes." "Funding isn't an issue," Thad said simply. "Finding the right location and the right people, that's the challenge." Ophelia, who had been quiet during this exchange, spoke up. "Would you use quantum computing? Mum's been researching it for her paintings. She has books taller than me." Isolde shot her daughter a warning look that Thad found curious. "It's just artistic inspiration, not scientific understanding," she said dismissively. "Art requires rigorous research too," Thad countered. "To answer your question, Ophelia, yes, quantum computing would be central to the work. It's particularly suited to modeling complex systems like weather patterns or pharmaceutical interactions." The conversation shifted to safer topics: local history, the upcoming autumn festival, the twins' school projects. Throughout the meal, Thad noticed how Isolde had constructed a life filled with creativity, community, and intellectual curiosity. The Brambles, for all its artistic chaos, was a nurturing environment that had produced two remarkable children. After dinner, Linnea departed with promises to work on the car first thing in the morning. The twins reluctantly headed to their rooms to finish homework, though not before Octavia extracted a promise from Thad that he would still be there for breakfast. "Mom makes pancakes on storm days," she informed him solemnly. "It's tradition," Left alone with Isolde in the kitchen, Thad automatically began gathering dishes. The simple domesticity of the action felt foreign to his hands, more accustomed to keyboards and technical schematics. "You don't need to do that," Isolde said, filling the sink with soapy water. "I want to," he insisted, bringing plates to the counter. "It's the least I can do after you've opened your home to me." They worked in silence for several minutes, establishing an unexpected rhythm. He rinsed, she washed, he dried. It was a dance they had never performed during their time together, when takeout containers and restaurant meals had been the norm amid their busy schedules. "Why are you really here, Thaddeus?" Isolde finally asked, her voice low to avoid being overheard by the twins. "Exactly as I said, I'm scouting locations for a new research initiative. You expect me to believe it's pure coincidence that you've appeared in the same remote town where your former girlfriend happens to live with your secret daughters?" "Former fiancé," he corrected gently, "if we're being precise. And yes, it is coincidence, though an extraordinary one." He set down the dish towel and faced her directly. "Isolde, I had no idea about the twins. None. How could I?" She studied him, searching for deception. "You never tried to find me after I left." "I tried for 3 months," he countered. "You changed your number, deleted your social media, disappeared from the gallery circuit. Your friends claimed not to know where you'd gone. Eventually, I accepted that you wanted a clean break." "I needed distance," she admitted. "Finding out I was pregnant right when your company was taking off. It was too much. I knew what you would choose." "You didn't give me the chance to choose," he pointed out, frustration edging his voice. "Would you have chosen differently?" she challenged. "Be honest." The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Thad wanted to say yes immediately, to insist he would have embraced fatherhood and found a way to balance it with his professional ambitions. But honesty compelled him to consider the man he had been 12 years ago, driven, obsessive, convinced that his technological breakthroughs would change the world. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "I'd like to think I would have risen to the occasion, but I was singularly focused back then. What I do know is that I deserved the opportunity to try." Isolde's expression softened slightly at his candor. "And now? What does the great Thaddeus Mercer want now that he knows he has daughters?" "To know them," he said simply, "to be part of their lives in whatever capacity you'll allow." "They have a good life here," she said defensively. "They're happy, well-adjusted, thriving in school. They don't need disruption." "I'm not suggesting disruption," he assured her, "but they deserve to know the truth about who they are, who I am. And when you return to your real life, your company, your board of directors who demand every waking moment, what then, Thaddeus? Weekend visits that gradually become monthly, then quarterly, as deadlines loom and investors make demands." Her words cut close to his doubts about his ability to change ingrained patterns. Before he could respond, his phone vibrated with an incoming message. The name on the screen made him frown. Zephyr Blackwood, his CFO, and the driving force behind Quantum Helix's recent controversial pivot toward defense contracts. "Go ahead," Isolde said, noting his expression. "Some things never change." "It's not like that," he insisted, silencing the phone without checking the message. "Zephyr and I are at odds about the company's direction. That's partly why I'm pursuing this new initiative, to return to the original humanitarian vision. Noble," she acknowledged, "but history suggests your dedication to such ideals fluctuates when confronted with practical realities." Before he could defend himself, Ophelia appeared in the kitchen doorway, her expression troubled. "Mom, can I ask you something important?" Isolde immediately shifted her attention. "Of course, love. What is it?" Ophelia hesitated, glancing at Thad. "It's private, about the necklace." Isolde's face paled slightly, We can talk in my studio. Excuse us, Mr. Gray. As they left, Thad felt a surge of hope. The necklace, that unique piece he had designed specifically for Isolde, might be the catalyst for truth. If Ophelia was asking questions about it now, after seeing his reaction to it earlier, perhaps the path forward would reveal itself naturally. Left alone, he finished drying the dishes, finding unexpected satisfaction in the mundane task. His phone vibrated again. Zephyr was persistent. With a sigh, he checked the message. Board emergency meeting called for tomorrow. Military contract. Amendments. Your presence required. Car being sent to your location. Respond with confirmation. The timing couldn't have been worse. Just as he had found his daughters, his company was forcing a decision that would determine its ethical trajectory for years to come. Zephyr had been pushing to adapt their quantum algorithms for weapons targeting systems, a direction Thad had been resisting for months. His absence from this meeting would essentially surrender control to Zephyr's faction on the board. He typed a response. Cannot attend. Technical difficulties with travel. Proceed without me, but no binding decisions on military applications until my return. The reply came almost immediately. Unacceptable. Location tracked via phone. Car will arrive Port Avalon 8 a.m. Meeting postponed 24 hours only. Z. Thad stared at the message in disbelief. Zephyr had tracked his location. The intrusion felt significant, beyond the bounds of professional relationship. Something about the situation raised alarms he couldn't quite articulate. He was still contemplating this when Isolde returned alone, her expression troubled. "Where's Ophelia?" he asked. "In bed. It's a school night." She poured herself a glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table. She asked about the necklace, specifically why you seemed to recognize it. "What did you tell her?" "A partial truth. That it was designed by a brilliant man I once knew who understood the mathematical beauty I try to capture in my art." "Thank you for not lying outright," Thad said quietly. "I've never lied to them about you," Isolde clarified. "I've simply been selective about details. They know their father is intelligent, innovative, and unavailable. But they don't know who I am." "No," she admitted, "and I'm not ready for them to know yet. I need to understand your intentions first." Thad nodded, accepting this boundary. "I respect that, but I have another concern at the moment." He showed her Zephyr's messages. "My company knows I'm here, and they're sending transportation in the morning. There's a critical meeting about military contracts that I can't miss if I want to prevent my technology from being weaponized." Isolde read the exchange, her artistic brow furrowing. "You're being tracked? That seems extreme even for corporate politics." "I thought so too. Something doesn't feel right about it." She studied him thoughtfully. "The Thaddeus I knew would have been on the first flight back, regardless of personal circumstances. I'm not that man anymore," he said simply. "The accident changed my perspective on many things." "So I've heard," she replied, setting down her wine glass. "The reclusive genius emerges from recovery with a new face and a philosophical awakening." It made for compelling media speculation, most of which was wildly inaccurate, he noted, but the core truth remains. Nearly dying made me reevaluate what matters. I've been gradually extracting myself from daily operations at Quantum Helix to pursue more meaningful applications of the technology. "And your board of directors just accepted this transformation?" "Hardly. They've been fighting me every step of the way, especially Zephyr." Isolde considered this information, clearly weighing her next words carefully. "The twins have school tomorrow. I have a gallery meeting in Meridian City that I've already rescheduled twice," she sighed. "But I'm curious about this meeting. military applications of quantum computing could have significant implications. "Are you offering to come with me?" Thad asked, surprised. "I'm offering to drive you," she clarified. "I have connections in Meridian still. We could drop the girls at school, attend your meeting, and be back before they're done with their after-school activities. Linnea can pick them up if we're delayed." "Why would you help me with this?" "Because whatever our personal history, weaponizing breakthrough technology is a concern that transcends it," she replied. "Also, I want to see for myself what kind of man you've become before I make any decisions about the twins' relationship with you." The proposition was unexpected but logical. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "I appreciate the offer." "Don't thank me yet," she warned. "I'm reserving judgment on many things, including whether having you in the twins' lives would benefit them or harm them." He accepted this with a nod. "Fair enough. I should prepare for tomorrow's meeting." "Guest room has a desk," she said, rising from the table. "I'll wake you at 6:30. The girls are up by 7 As she turned to leave, he called after her softly. "Isolde, for what it's worth, you've done an amazing job with them. They're extraordinary." For the first time since his arrival, her smile reached her eyes. "They are, aren't they? Good night, Thaddeus." "Good night, Isolde." In the guest room, Thad settled at the small desk and opened his laptop, connecting to the satellite internet, service he used when traveling. He needed to prepare for tomorrow's confrontation with Zephyr and the board, but first, he wanted to learn more about the lives of his newly discovered daughters. A search for Octavia Ophelia Vega Port Avalon yielded results that made his chest tighten with pride. School science fair victories, regional chess tournament placements, a local newspaper feature about their coastal cleanup initiative. Photos showed the girls at various ages, always together yet distinct in their expressions and postures. Ophelia's serious concentration matched his own approach to problems, while Octavia's exuberant creativity echoed Isolde's artistic spirit. He saved several images, unable to stop staring at these remarkable young humans who carried his genetic heritage. Had he been there to witness their growth, to nurture their talents, to comfort them when they struggled? The weight of missed moments pressed on him with unexpected heaviness. Forcing himself to focus on the immediate challenge, Thad accessed his secure company server and reviewed the proposed military contract amendments. The language confirmed his worst fears. Zephyr was pushing to adapt their quantum cryptography for offensive capabilities, potentially undermining international security protocols. The ethical implications were staggering. As he prepared counter-arguments and alternative proposals, a soft knock interrupted his concentration. He opened the door to find Octavia in pajamas decorated with mathematical symbols. "I forgot to ask if you need anything," she explained. "Extra blankets or a glass of water or whatever." "I'm all set, but thank you for checking," he replied, touched by her thoughtfulness. She nodded but didn't leave, shifting from one foot to the other. "Can I ask you something weird?" "Of course." "Have we met before? Because you seem really familiar, like déjà vu familiar." The question caught him off guard. "I don't think so," he said carefully. "I would remember meeting someone as memorable as you." She studied him with a directness inherited from Isolde. "Mum got really quiet after you saw Ophelia's necklace, and then Ophelia had a private talk with her. Something's going on." Her perceptiveness was remarkable. "Families have complicated dynamics sometimes," he offered neutrally. "I'm just a stranded traveler who's grateful for your family's hospitality." She clearly wasn't satisfied, but decided not to press further. "Mum says we're driving you to Meridian City tomorrow after school drop-off." "That's the plan. I have an important meeting." "About your think tank thing?" "Indirectly. It's about making sure technology is used to help people, not harm them." This seemed to satisfy her. That's good. Technology should make the world better. She yawned suddenly. Good night, Mr. Gray. See you at breakfast. Good night, Octavia. Sweet dreams. After she left, Thad returned to his preparations with renewed determination. Tomorrow's meeting wasn't just about the future of his company. It was about creating a world where his daughters, and all children, could thrive without the shadow of weaponized quantum technology. Morning arrived with dramatic skies, dark clouds breaking to reveal patches of brilliant blue. True to Isolde's prediction, pancakes were served, complete with wild blackberry syrup the twins had helped harvest and preserve the previous summer. The domesticity of the scene was interrupted only by a text message from Zephyr. Car en route. Arrival at location in 20 minutes. We'll take my car instead, Isolde announced when Thad relayed this information. I don't trust corporate drivers, especially ones who track phones. The twins, backpacks ready for school, exchanged curious glances at this comment. Are you in some kind of trouble, Mr. Gray? Ophelia asked quietly. Not trouble exactly, he replied. Just corporate politics. Nothing for you to worry about. Will you still be here when we get home from school? Octavia wanted to know. Thad looked to Isolde, deferring to her on this point. Mr. Gray will need to return to Meridian for his meeting, she explained. But his car should be fixed by this afternoon. We'll see what happens after that. This deliberately vague answer seemed to satisfy Octavia, but Ophelia continued watching Thad with that unnervingly perceptive gaze. The school drop-off was efficient, both girls joining streams of students entering the small but modern building overlooking the harbor. Thad watched them until they disappeared inside, still processing the reality that these were his daughters, now moving through a world he knew nothing about. As they pulled away, Isolde broke the silence. You look shell-shocked. I am, he admitted. Yesterday morning, I was a childless workaholic. Today, I'm watching my twin daughters walk into their middle school. Welcome to parenthood, she replied dryly. Perpetual emotional whiplash. Have they always been so different from each other? He asked. Octavia so outgoing, Ophelia so observant. Since birth, Isolde confirmed, navigating the coastal, a road with practiced ease. Octavia was born shouting. Ophelia came out quietly watching everything. The doctor said he'd never seen a newborn so alert. They're extraordinary, Thad said again. You've done an incredible job raising them. It hasn't been easy, she acknowledged, especially in the early years. Linnea was a godsend, helping with childcare when I had gallery openings, fixing things around the house I couldn't afford to hire professionals for. I'm sorry you had to do it alone, he said softly. Whatever our differences, that burden should have been shared. Isolde kept her eyes on the winding road. It is what it is. We've built a good life. Tell me about them, he requested. What they love, what challenges them, who they are beyond what I can observe in a day. As they drove toward Meridian City, Isolde shared stories that painted a fuller picture of the twins' personalities. Octavia's passionate defense of a classmate being bullied, Ophelia's quiet determination when learning piano, practicing until her fingers blistered, their shared love of tide pools and thunderstorms, their fiercely loyal bond despite their differences. Each anecdote was another glimpse of the life Thad had missed, beautiful and painful in equal measure. By the time the Meridian City skyline appeared on the horizon, dominated by the distinctive helix tower of his company headquarters, he felt both more connected to his daughters and more acutely aware of his absence from their formative years. You should know, Isolde said as they approached the city, that I've been following your company's work. My quantum series isn't just artistic interpretation. It's informed critique of how these technologies might reshape society. This surprised him. You've been studying quantum computing? I'm an artist, not a scientist, she clarified. But I've educated myself enough to understand the implications. Your algorithms have revolutionary potential beyond the commercial applications you've pursued. That's partly why I'm here, he admitted, to prevent those algorithms from being weaponized. The quantum encryption protocol I developed to secure medical data could, if reversed, break any security system in existence, including government and military systems, Isolde concluded. No wonder they're interested. As they entered the city, Thad directed her not to the main quantum helix tower, but to a smaller, understated building several blocks away. Secondary meeting facility, he explained. More secure, less monitored by Zephyr's people. Isolde parked in the underground garage, and they took a private elevator to the top-floor conference room. Thad used his biometric signature to access the space, which was empty save for one person, a middle-aged woman with steel-grey hair pulled into an elegant chignon. "Dr. Mercer," she greeted him formally. "We were concerned when you didn't respond to transportation arrangements." "I found alternate means," he replied. "Dr. Ilara Chen, this is Isolde Vega, an old friend who happened to be nearby when my car broke down." Dr. Chen's eyebrows rose slightly, but she maintained professional composure. "Ms. Vega, a pleasure. I've admired your work at the Meridian Contemporary Gallery." "Thank you," Isolde replied, surprised to be recognized. "Dr. Chen is our head of research ethics," Thad explained. "One of the few executive team members who shares my concerns about recent developments." "Mr. Blackwood and the board members are scheduled to arrive in 15 minutes, Dr. Chen informed. They're coming from the main tower." "Good. That gives us time to prepare." Thad activated the room's secure systems, bringing up holographic displays of contract language and technical specifications. "Isolde, I'll need to brief you quickly on what we're facing." For the next 10 minutes, he outlined the situation, how Zephyr Blackwood had been gradually steering Quantum Helix toward defense contracts, positioning their breakthrough technologies for military applications against Thad's original vision. The meeting today would determine whether Thad's quantum encryption protocol, designed for securing sensitive medical and scientific data, would be adapted for offensive cyber capabilities. "The implications are staggering," Dr. Chen added. "In the wrong hands, this technology could destabilize global security infrastructures. Mr. Blackwood sees only the profit potential and strategic advantages for our military partners." "And you're outnumbered on the board?" Isolde asked, quickly, grasping the dynamics. 7-6, with Dr. Chen and me in the minority, Thad confirmed. "But as founder, I retain special voting privileges on technological applications. They need my explicit approval for this pivot. Which is why Zephyr tracked your location and insisted on your presence," Isolde concluded. "He wants to force a decision." "Precisely, and he's been increasingly aggressive about it." "You think he might be connected to the explosion in your laboratory?" Isolde asked suddenly, making a connection that startled both Thad and Dr. Chen. "Why would you suggest that?" Thad asked carefully. "Because you're describing someone ruthlessly pursuing military applications of your technology," Isolde replied. "Someone tracking your movements and demanding your presence despite your clear reluctance. Someone desperate enough to send transportation to a remote coastal town on short notice." Dr. Chen and Thad exchanged significant looks. "We've had similar suspicions," Dr. Chen admitted, "but no proof. The explosion was officially ruled an equipment malfunction. Convenient that it happened right after I began explicitly opposing military applications," Thad noted grimly, "and that I was the only one in the lab that night." The elevator chimed, announcing new arrivals. "They're early," Dr. Chen murmured, straightening her jacket. The conference room doors opened to reveal Zephyr Blackwood, an imposing figure in An immaculate charcoal suit followed by 4 board members. He stopped short at the sight of Isolde. "This is a closed board meeting," he said coldly. "Security protocols don't allow for guests." "Ms. Vega is here at my invitation," Thad replied, firmly, "as an independent consultant on ethical applications of our technology." Zephyr's eyes narrowed. Curious choice. An artist with no scientific credentials. Ms. Vega has spent years studying the societal implications of quantum technologies, Thad countered. Her perspective will be valuable. The tension in the room was palpable as everyone took their seats. Thad positioned himself at the head of the table, projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. This confrontation had been building for months, and its outcome would determine not just the future of his company, but potentially the safety of the world his daughters would inherit. "Let's begin," he announced, activating the room's recording. "Protocols. We're here to discuss the proposed amendments to the Quantum Security Protocol contracts. Specifically, the adaptation of our encryption algorithms for military offensive capabilities." Zephyr leaned forward. "A natural evolution of the technology that positions us advantageously in a competitive market. The defense sector represents a $40 billion opportunity." "Ooh. An opportunity that contradicts the foundational principles of this company," Thad responded. "Our technology was developed to secure sensitive data, not compromise it." "Technology is neutral," one of the board members interjected. "Its application is determined by market forces." "That's a convenient abdication of responsibility," Isolde observed quietly, drawing all eyes to her. "By that logic, we bear no ethical burden for creating tools that could destabilize global security as long as someone's willing to pay for them." "With respect, Ms. Vega," Zephyr replied with thinly veiled condescension. "These are complex technological and business considerations beyond artistic interpretation." "Actually," Dr. Chen interjected, "Ms. Vega has articulated the exact concern that many of our senior researchers have expressed. The quantum decryption capabilities outlined in these amendments could compromise medical records, financial systems, and critical infrastructure globally." The debate intensified as technical specifications were displayed and dissected. Throughout the exchange, Thad noticed Zephyr watching him with calculating eyes, particularly when Isolde spoke. There was something in his scrutiny that felt personal, beyond professional disagreement. 2 hours into the meeting, they reached an impasse. The financial arguments for the military contracts were compelling from a business perspective, but the ethical concerns remained insurmountable. "This comes down to a foundational decision about who we are as a company," Thad summarized. "And as founder, with super voting privileges on technological applications, I cannot approve this direction." Zephyr's expression hardened. "We anticipated your resistance," he said coldly, "which is why the board has prepared an alternative solution." He slid a document across the table, a complex legal filing that Thad recognized immediately as a competency challenge. The board was attempting to remove his technological veto power based on claims of erratic behavior and compromised judgment following his accident. "This is groundless," Thad said, anger rising, "and transparent in its motivation. Your extended absence, your withdrawal from operations, your sudden interest in humanitarian applications at the expense of shareholder value," Zephyr enumerated. "The pattern suggests instability. The board has a fiduciary responsibility to intervene." Thad felt Isolde stiffen beside him, her artist's hands clenching into fists. "This isn't about fiduciary responsibility," she said, her voice tightly controlled. "This is a calculated power grab to remove the only obstacle to weaponizing breakthrough technology." Zephyr's cold smile didn't reach his eyes. "Again, Ms. Vega, you speak on matters beyond your expertise, though I'm curious about your sudden appearance in Dr. Mercer's life at this particular juncture. Something in his tone raised alarm bells for Thad. The implied knowledge, the subtle emphasis on sudden appearance, it suggested Zephyr knew more about Isolde than he should. My presence here is coincidental, Isolde replied smoothly. A fortunate instance of being in the right place when Dr. Mercer's car broke down. Coincidental, Zephyr repeated skeptically, like your decision to settle in Port Avalon 12 years ago, or your daughter's remarkable aptitude for mathematics and computer science, despite your artistic background? The room went silent. Thad felt a cold realization spread through him. Zephyr hadn't just tracked his current location. He had been monitoring Isolde and the twins. For how long? And why? How do you know about my daughters? Isolde demanded, her composure cracking. Zephyr's smile widened. Quantum Helix maintains comprehensive intelligence on all potential assets, including those with genetic connections to our founder's proprietary intellectual capabilities. The implication was chilling. You've been watching my family? Thad asked, his voice dangerous. Observing potentially valuable human resources, Zephyr corrected. The next generation of quantum innovators. Your daughters, Dr. Mercer, have inherited your unique cognitive architecture. Their test scores and developmental patterns confirm it. The revelation hung in the air like a physical threat. Thad's mind raced through implications. Zephyr had not only known about the twins, he had been monitoring them, testing them, assessing their potential value to Quantum Helix. The violation was staggering. You've been spying on children, Isolde said, her voice trembling with barely controlled rage. My children. Observing exceptional talent, Zephyr corrected smoothly. Talents that could significantly advance our quantum initiative, especially given their genetic heritage. Dr. Chen looked horrified. This is completely unethical. The board never authorized surveillance of minors. Special projects don't always require full board approval, Zephyr replied dismissively. The point is, we face a critical decision about the company's future, and all relevant factors should be considered. My daughters are not relevant factors, Thad said, his voice dangerously soft. They are children who deserve privacy and protection. Your surveillance ends today. Zephyr leaned back, his expression calculating. Unfortunately, you're not in a position to make demands. The competency challenge has already been filed. By this time tomorrow, your supervoting privileges will be suspended pending evaluation. His smile turned predatory. Of course, we could reach an alternative arrangement. What kind of arrangement? Thad asked, though he already suspected the answer. You approve the military applications now, retain your position with the company, and we establish a special educational track for your daughters when they're ready, with generous compensation for their mother, naturally. You're trying to leverage my children to force my compliance, Thad said, the full picture becoming sickeningly clear. I'm offering a mutually beneficial solution, Zephyr countered. Their intellectual gifts deserve proper nurturing. Port Avalon's educational system can hardly accommodate minds of their caliber. Isolde stood abruptly. We're done here. My daughters aren't bargaining chips in your corporate power play. Miss Vega, Zephyr said, his tone hardening, you've raised these girls without their father's resources for 12 years. Perhaps you should consider their future opportunities before dismissing our interest. Their future doesn't include being exploited by you, she shot back. Thad remained seated, his mind working through options and implications with the same methodical precision that had made him a technological innovator. The surveillance wasn't just about the twins' potential, he said slowly. You needed leverage against me, because you knew I would never voluntarily approve weaponizing the encryption protocols. Your principals have become expensive liabilities, Zephyr acknowledged coldly. The defense contracts represent billions in potential revenue. There's something you're not saying, Thad pressed, seeing a flicker of calculation in Zephyr's expression. The timing is wrong. Why push so aggressively now, after years of development? Dr. Chen gasped softly as understanding dawned. The quantum core is stable, that's it, isn't it? Your team has finally achieved stable quantum coherence at room temperature. Zephyr's momentary hesitation confirmed it. This was the breakthrough they had been working toward for years. A quantum processor that didn't require extreme cooling. To maintain coherence, the technological implications were staggering. The applications extend far beyond breaking encryption, Thad realized aloud. With stable coherence, the quantum algorithms could be applied to autonomous weapon systems, drone swarms, predictive targeting, technological supremacy, Zephyr finished simply. The first nation to deploy quantum-enhanced military systems will establish dominance for decades. The magnitude of what was at stake crystallized in Thad's mind. This wasn't just about his company's ethical direction or even his relationship with his newly discovered daughters. This was about preventing a quantum arms race that could fundamentally destabilize global security. I need time to consider the implications, he said deliberately, playing for time. These are complex decisions that affect not just quantum, helix, but potentially global security frameworks. Zephyr checked his watch. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow. The board reconvenes then for a final decision. His eyes moved to Isolde. I suggest you both consider what's best for the twins' future. With that not-so-subtle threat, Zephyr and the board members departed, leaving Thad, Isolde, and Dr. Chen in stunned silence. He's been planning this. For years, Dr. Chen finally said. The surveillance of your family, the competency challenge, the military pivot, all carefully orchestrated. And the explosion in your lab? Isolde asked grimly. Was that part of the orchestration too? Increasingly likely, Thad admitted, though proving it would be another matter. What do we do now? Isolde asked, professional composure giving way to maternal fear. If he's been watching the girls, we need to get back to Port Avalon immediately, Thad said, already moving toward the door. I don't trust Zephyr to wait for tomorrow's deadline, especially now that he's shown his hand. Dr. Chen nodded. I'll stay here, try to rally support among the other board members. Some of them can't possibly approve of surveilling children, regardless of their genetic potential. In the elevator descending to the parking garage, Isolde's composure finally broke. 12 years, she whispered. Has he been watching them their entire lives? Were there people in Port Avalon reporting on them? Taking their school samples, evaluating them? Thad gently took her trembling hands in his. We'll figure this out. I promise you, Isolde. I will protect them with everything I have. The fierce conviction in his voice seemed to steady her. I believe you would, she said, meeting his eyes. The Thaddeus I knew was brilliant, but disconnected from emotional realities. The man I see now is different. Nearly dying has that effect, he said with grim humor. Makes you reassess priorities rather dramatically. As they reached her car, Thad's phone chimed with an incoming message from Dr. Chen. Security feeds. Show Zephyr sent team to Port Avalon 20 minutes ago. Be careful. He showed the message to Isolde, whose face paled. The girls get out of school at 3:15. It's already 2:30. Call the school, Thad suggested as they pulled out of the garage. Have them hold the twins in the office until we arrive. Isolde made the call, her voice steady despite her evident fear. The school administrator assured her the girls would remain supervised until she arrived. They're safe for now, she reported, pressing the accelerator harder as they left the city limits. But what about after? If Zephyr has been monitoring, Them all this time, he won't stop because we've discovered it. I have a plan, Thad assured her, but it requires resources I can access only from my secure systems. We need to get the girls, then get to my temporary research facility outside Port Avalon. The think tank location you mentioned at dinner? It's more than just a potential site, he admitted. It's already operational with a small team working on humanitarian applications, completely separate from Quantum Helix's infrastructure and secure from external monitoring. Isolde shot him a surprised look. You've been planning your exit strategy. For 3 years, he confirmed, since the explosion made me reevaluate everything. The facial reconstruction surgery gave me an unexpected advantage, a new identity, that even Zephyr doesn't fully connect with Thaddeus Mercer, technological innovator. Thomas Gray, she realized. That's not just a convenient alias. You've been establishing that identity. Along with separate research parameters, funding structures, and technological safeguards, he nodded. I never imagined I'd need these contingencies to protect my own children, but I'm grateful they exist. The coastal road stretched before them, each curve bringing them closer to Port Avalon and the twins. Isolde drove with focused intensity, her artist's hands steady on the wheel, despite the emotional turmoil evident in her expression. I should have told you, she said suddenly, about the pregnancy, about them. You deserved to know, whatever decision you might have made. Yes, he agreed simply. I should have known, but dwelling on the past won't help us now. What matters is protecting their future. When they reached the school, the parking lot was nearly empty. Late afternoon, sunlight casting long shadows across the playground. Inside the administrative office, Octavia and Ophelia sat on a bench, backpacks at their feet, expressions confused and worried. "Mom!" Octavia exclaimed, jumping up. "What's going on? Ms. Winters wouldn't let us walk home like usual." "Is everything okay?" Ophelia asked more quietly, her observant eyes moving between her mother and Thad. "There's been a change of plans," Isolde explained, trying to sound casual. "We're going to take a little trip this afternoon." "What about my piano lesson?" Ophelia asked. "And Octavia's science club meeting?" "They'll have to wait," Thad interjected gently. "Something important has come up that we need to address as a—" He hesitated, unsure how to finish the sentence. "As a family," Isolde completed, making a decision in that moment that Thad hadn't dared hope for. The twins exchanged confused glances. "But Mr. Gray isn't—" Octavia began. "We'll explain everything," Isolde promised. "But first, we need to go somewhere safe." Outside, Thad scanned the parking lot and surrounding streets, alert for any sign of Zephyr's team. They reached Isolde's car without incident, but as they pulled away from the school, he noticed a black SUV with tinted windows turning onto the street behind them. "We're being followed," he said quietly, not wanting to alarm the twins in the back seat. Isolde checked the rearview mirror. "Black SUV? I see it." "Take the coastal route," Thad suggested. "It's less direct, but offers more opportunities to lose them." "Mom, what's happening?" Ophelia asked, her perceptive eyes missing nothing. "Mr. Gray's car isn't fixed yet, and we need to help him reach his research facility," Isolde explained, the partial truth coming easily. "We might have a small detour first." As they reached the junction where the main road continued inland, while the coastal route curved along the cliffs, Isolde made a last-second turn onto the less-traveled path. The SUV accelerated to follow. "They're definitely after us," Thad confirmed grimly. "Can this car handle rough terrain?" "It's survived 12 years of coastal storms and unpaved roads," Isolde replied, her hands tight on the wheel. "What did you have in mind?" "There's an access road to the lighthouse about 2 miles ahead," he said. "Narrow and steep, difficult for a larger vehicle to navigate." Isolde nodded, pressing the accelerator harder. The twins, now aware something unusual was happening, remained unusually quiet in the back seat, exchanging worried glances. "Mr. Gray," Ophelia finally said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Does this have something to do with the necklace?" The unexpected question caught both adults by surprise. Before Thad could formulate a response, Octavia added, "And why did that man at your meeting know about us? Mom never takes us to Meridian City for business stuff." "You were listening?" Isolde asked, shocked. "I called Ophelia during your meeting," Octavia admitted, "to tell her about my science club project. She forgot to hang up after, and the phone was in her backpack." "We heard everything," Ophelia confirmed quietly. "About genetic heritage and monitoring and quantum cores." Thad met Isolde's eyes briefly, seeing his own mixture of concern and admiration reflected there. These girls were indeed extraordinary, perceptive, resourceful, and far more aware than they had realized. "It's complicated," he began, choosing his words carefully. "But you deserve the truth. The necklace Ophelia wears, I designed it years ago, for your mother." "You knew Mom before?" Octavia asked, leaning forward in her seat. "We were close," he confirmed, watching Isolde navigate a particularly sharp curve as the SUV gained ground behind them. Very close, actually. "The lighthouse road is just ahead," Isolde interjected, nodding toward a nearly hidden turnoff. "Take it," Thad advised, then continued addressing the twins. "The man who was talking about you, Zephyr Blackwood, he's been doing things without permission, watching people who shouldn't be watched, including you two. Like spying." Octavia's eyes widened. "But why? We're just kids." "Because," Ophelia said slowly, the pieces connecting in her analytical. "We're not just anyone's kids, we're his kids." She pointed at Thad, her expression a complex mixture of shock, understanding, and something approaching awe. The car fell silent as Isolde turned onto the lighthouse access road, the vehicle jolting on the rough surface. In the rearview mirror, the SUV hesitated at the turnoff, clearly assessing whether to follow on the challenging terrain. "Is that true?" Octavia demanded. "Are you our father?" Thad looked to Isolde, who nodded almost imperceptibly, giving permission for the truth. "Yes," he said simply, "I am." "But your name is Thomas Gray," Octavia pointed out. "That's an alias," he explained. "My real name is Thaddeus Mercer. I'm the founder of Quantum Helix, the company that developed the technology Zephyr Blackwood is trying to weaponize." Ophelia's hand went to the necklace at her throat. "That's why you recognize this. You made it." "For your mother," he confirmed. "It represents the quantum algorithm that revolutionized computational modeling. The same algorithm Zephyr wants to adapt for military applications." "So you're actually a famous tech genius?" Octavia asked, her expressive face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and a dawning excitement. "And we're your daughters? And bad guys are chasing us because of quantum whatever?" "That's a surprisingly accurate summary," Thad acknowledged with a small smile. The SUV had decided to attempt the lighthouse road, its powerful engine audible as it navigated the steep incline behind them. "We need to lose them before we head to the research facility," Isolde said tensely. "Any ideas?" Thad surveyed their surroundings. Rocky outcroppings, twisted coastal pines, the lighthouse perched dramatically on the cliff edge ahead. The maintenance shed near the lighthouse has a service road that loops back to the main coastal route. It's barely visible, unless you know it's there. "I know it," Isolde confirmed. "Painted it last summer for my coastal series." As they approached the lighthouse, Isolde slowed just enough to make the sharp turn onto the overgrown service path without losing control. The SUV, carrying more momentum, missed the turnoff and continued toward the lighthouse parking area. "They'll realize their mistake quickly," Thad warned as they bumped along the narrow track. "We need to reach the main road and get to the research facility within the next 15 minutes. "If you're really our father," Octavia asked from the back seat, "why haven't you been around? Why didn't we know about you? The question cut to the heart of 12 years of absence, misunderstanding, and choices made without full information. Before Thad could respond, Isolde answered for him. "That's my fault," she admitted, surprising everyone in the car, including herself. "I never told him about you. I made that decision alone, and it wasn't fair to any of you." "But why?" Ophelia asked, her quiet voice carrying the weight of years without a father. "Because I was afraid," Isolde said simply. "Afraid he would choose his work over us. Afraid you would be disappointed. Afraid I would lose the life I had built for us." "And I gave her reason for those fears," Thad added. "Back then I was obsessed with my work. I didn't understand what really mattered." They reached the junction with the main coastal road. No sign of the SUV behind them. Isolde turned toward Port Avalon, then took an unmarked side road that wound through a dense pine forest. "The research facility is just ahead," Thad directed, "through those trees." The building that emerged was nothing like Quantum Helix's gleaming corporate headquarters. Set into the hillside with extensive use of natural materials, it resembled an eco-resort more than a technological research center. Solar panels blended with the roofline, and large windows captured the coastal light. "You do this?" Octavia asked, impressed despite the circumstances. "Started it 3 years ago," Thad confirmed as they pulled up to a secured entrance. "After the accident that changed my face and my perspective." He pressed his palm to a biometric scanner disguised as a decorative panel. The gates swung open silently, allowing them to drive into an underground parking area. "Welcome to Quantum Harbor," he said as they exited the car. "The future of humanitarian technology, if we can prevent Zephyr from weaponizing the core algorithms." Inside, the facility hummed with quiet activity. A small team of researchers worked at stations featuring advanced displays and equipment. Unlike anything found in conventional laboratories, Dr. Ilara Chen was already there, having arrived via helicopter while they navigated the coastal roads. "You made good time," she greeted them. "Zephyr's team reported losing you near the lighthouse." "Then we have a brief advantage," Thad noted, guiding the group to a secure conference room with sweeping views of the ocean. "What's the status at headquarters?" "Zephyr has called an emergency board meeting for 6 p.m. tonight instead of tomorrow morning," Dr. Chen reported grimly. "He's accelerating his timeline now that you've discovered his surveillance of the twins." "Can he do that? Change the meeting time?" Isolde asked. "With enough board support, yes," Thad confirmed, "and he clearly believes he has it." Octavia, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since arriving at the facility, suddenly spoke up. "You need to stop him from using your algorithm thing for weapons, right? That's why he's been watching us? To make you agree?" "Essentially, yes," Thad acknowledged, impressed by her quick grasp of the situation. "So what's your plan?" Ophelia asked, her analytical mind already working on the problem. Thad smiled, despite the gravity of their situation. These were indeed his daughters, facing a crisis that would terrify most adults with remarkable composure and intelligence. "The plan has several components," he explained, pulling up secure displays with a gesture. "First, we need to protect you and your mother from further surveillance or potential threats." "Already in progress," Dr. Chen confirmed. "This facility is completely isolated from quantum helix systems and impervious to conventional monitoring. Second," Thad continued, "we need to neutralize Zephyr's leverage. He believes he can force my compliance by threatening legal action regarding the twins or by dangling opportunities for their development under his supervision." "Which isn't happening," Isolde stated firmly. "Absolutely not," Thad agreed. "Which brings us to the third component, securing the core quantum algorithms to prevent unauthorized weaponization regardless of what happens at tonight's board meeting." "How?" Ophelia asked, her eyes fixed on the complex equations displayed on the screens. Thad exchanged glances with Dr. Chen, who nodded encouragement. "The necklace you're wearing," he said to Ophelia. "It's more than just a mathematical representation." Ophelia's hand went automatically to the pendant. "What do you mean?" "The platinum spiral contains a quantum-encrypted key," he explained. "When I designed it for your mother, I encoded the core verification protocols that govern how our quantum algorithms can be applied." "You put part of your algorithm in a necklace?" Octavia asked incredulously. "A safeguard," Thad clarified. "The most sensitive applications of our technology, including the military adaptations Zephyr is pursuing, require multiple verification keys. One of those keys is physically embedded in that pendant." Isolde looked stunned. "You gave me a key to your technology and never told me?" "I trusted you completely," Thad said simply, "and I wanted the most important component of my life's work to be protected by the most important person in my life." The naked emotion in his voice silenced. The room, even the twins, seemed to recognize the weight of this revelation. "So the necklace can stop the bad guys?" Octavia finally asked, breaking the tension. "It can prevent unauthorized applications of the quantum core technology," Thad confirmed, "but we need to access it properly." He turned to Ophelia. "May I?" She hesitated only briefly before unclasping the necklace and handing it to him. Thad handled it reverently, memories of designing it for Isolde flooding back, how he had incorporated their personal mathematical connection into the spiraling form, how he had imagined it as a symbol of their intertwined futures. "Dr. Chen," he said, passing her the pendant, "would you please prepare the extraction protocol?" While Dr. Chen carefully placed the necklace in a specialized scanner, Thad brought up displays showing the Quantum Helix headquarters tower. "Zephyr believes he has outmaneuvered us," he explained. "He doesn't realize that we can remotely lock down the quantum core protocols from here using the verification key in the necklace." "What happens to your company?" Isolde asked. "To everything you've built?" "It changes," Thad admitted. "The military contracts will fail without the core protocols. Stock value will likely drop significantly. But the technology will remain secure, and we can rebuild around the humanitarian applications we've been developing here." "You're willing to sacrifice your company?" Ophelia asked, watching him intently. "For the right reasons, yes," he replied. "Some things matter more than corporate success or technological dominance. Like family," Octavia suggested with uncharacteristic shyness. "Exactly like family," Thad confirmed, his heart full as he looked at these remarkable girls, his daughters, and the woman who had raised them with such wisdom and love. Dr. Chen approached with a secure tablet displaying a complex interface. "The verification key has been extracted and authenticated. We're ready to initiate the lockdown protocol on your command." Thad turned to Isolde and the twins, knowing this moment represented not just a technological decision, but a personal crossroads. "This action can't be undone," he explained. "It will effectively end Quantum Helix as it currently exists. I wanted you all to understand what this means before I proceed." "Will it keep us safe?" Isolde asked simply. "Yes," he promised. "Without access to the core protocols, Zephyr loses his leverage, both technological and personal." "Then do it," she said firmly. Thad looked to the twins, including them in this pivotal decision. They exchanged one of their silent twin communications before nodding in unison. With a deep breath, Thad pressed his palm to the authentication panel and entered the final command sequence. The displays around them shifted as the protocol was activated, showing cascading security measures locking down systems throughout the Quantum Helix infrastructure. "It's done," Dr. Chen confirmed after a moment. "The core protocols are secured. Zephyr's team will be discovering the lockdown right about now." As if on cue, Thad's secure phone lit up with incoming messages. First, from board members, then multiple calls from Zephyr himself. He silenced the device without responding. "What now?" Octavia asked, the excitement of the moment giving way to uncertainty about their future. "Now," Thad said, glancing at Isolde for confirmation. "We begin again. Together, if that's what you all want." "As a family?" Ophelia asked, hope evident in her expression. "As a family?" Isolde agreed softly. "In whatever form that takes for us. A rather unconventional beginning," Thad acknowledged with a smile. "But then, conventional has never been our strong suit." Outside the facility's windows, the sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks that reflected off the water. Within the secure conference room, another kind of dawn was breaking, the first light of a family being formed, not by conventional paths, but by truth, courage, and choices that prioritized connection over ambition. Thad's phone buzzed one final time with a message from his legal team. Zephyr detained by federal agents investigating corporate espionage and unethical surveillance. Board emergency session called for tomorrow. Your presence requested. He showed the message to Isolde, who read it with a satisfied nod. "Justice works in unexpected ways sometimes," she observed. "So does family," Thad replied, watching as the twins explored the facility with the natural curiosity they had inherited from both their parents. So does family. The necklace, that quantum spiral that had connected them across 12 years of separation, lay on the conference table, catching the last golden rays of sunset. It had served its technological purpose, but its deeper significance remained, a symbol of how science and art, logic and emotion, past and future, could intertwine into something stronger and more beautiful than either could be alone. Just like the family forming in that moment, finding their way toward a future none of them could have predicted, but all of them now would shape together. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.